Huge breaking news, friends. A brand new relief payment has been announced, and millions of Americans can claim a $750 one-time relief check right now. A very big and important day is coming up, as these payments will be automatically deposited for most Americans. But friends, there are several key details that you need to know on this new round of stimulus check. So definitely make sure to watch until the end of this video, because I will be covering everything that you need to know about these relief checks. And to say thank you for joining me here every day, I'm giving away 4 $75 Walmart gift cards every week. Please make sure that you click and like several of my videos, and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways. If you filed your 2019 or 2020 taxes late, then you're likely to be eligible for a rebate on those late fees. More than 1 million Americans will receive a rebate from the Internal Revenue Service or have their late fine canceled. This relief applies to the failure to file penalty, which can be hefty. The penalty grows about 5% per month, up to 25% of the taxes that are unpaid when you finally do file. The IRS says that most people and businesses who filed certain returns late will be eligible, and that means 1.6 million Americans could soon see an average refund of $750, which will add up to more than $1.2 billion. But if you're one of the 1.6 million, you will have to file your overdue taxes by the end of the month, or you could miss out. Eileen Scher, a tax expert, told reporters this week, this will help a lot of taxpayers that couldn't meet with their accountants, couldn't file their taxes on time. The relief applies to the 1040 and 1120 form series, which deal with income and corporate taxes. Tax experts have pointed out that a larger than average number of people failed to meet the filing deadlines during the crisis because of business closures and administrative backlogs. But because the IRS only announced the relief in August, some tax experts worry that many people might not be able to meet the deadline. To that end, the organization sent a letter to the IRS requesting that the deadline extension for getting the 2019 and 2020 taxes be extended beyond September 30th, 2022 to at least the end of this year. So friends, if you have not filed your 2019 or 2020 taxes yet, then you will need to do so by September 30th to be eligible for this relief. But if you have already filed and paid a penalty, then you shouldn't have to do anything else to get your refund. However, please keep in mind that it may take a few weeks for the refund to be processed, and the forgiveness only applies if you filed late, not if you paid late. Friends, the key word for this video is 4 peaks. If you would like to enter tomorrow's Walmart gift card giveaway, please click and like several of my videos, and then comment below this keyword, which is 4 peaks, and additional keywords of any video of mine that you watch. And do make sure, friends, that you are subscribed to my channel. Remember, friends, that the more videos that you watch and then leave a comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways. The Federal Reserve will have to keep boosting its benchmark interest rate to get to a point that raises unemployment and gets inflation down from these unusually high levels. Susan Collins, the new president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, endorsed Fed projections that were released last week that signaled its benchmark interest rate would rise to 4.6% by next year, up sharply from 3.1% now. During a recent speech, Susan Collins said, getting inflation down will require slower employment growth and a somewhat higher unemployment rate. According to 2 officials, Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester said the Fed's short-term rate would have to stay higher for longer than previously expected, regardless of the uncertainties surrounding the economy, such as ongoing supply chain difficulties. She also stated, when there's a lot of uncertainty, it can be better for policymakers to actually act more aggressively, because aggressive action and preemptive action can prevent the worst-case outcomes from happening. Loretta Mester also noted that she expects higher interest rates will raise unemployment, but disagreed with a forecast by Bank of America that the unemployment rate would rise to 5.5%. The comments from both officials added to an ongoing debate about how badly the Federal Reserve's rate hikes will hurt the U.S. economy. By lifting its benchmark rate, the Fed is pushing up the cost of a wide range of consumer and business loans, including mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. Collins also said, while worries are rising about a recession, the goal of a more modest slowdown, while challenging, is achievable. Also on Monday, stocks fell for the fifth straight day, and longer-term interest rate rose amid growing fears of a global recession. The yield of the 10-year Treasury, which influences mortgage rates, jumped to 3.89% from 3.69%. Fed officials hope their rate hikes will achieve a soft landing by slowing consumer and business spending enough to bring down inflation, but not so much as to cause a recession. Yet, many economists are increasingly skeptical that such an outcome is likely. The Fed has lifted its key rate to a range of 3% to 3.25%, even as the U.S. economy has already slowed. Well, my beautiful friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for this morning. Thank you so much for joining me here every day when I post a video. To say thank you, I'll be announcing a winner for the Walmart gift card giveaway in a video later tomorrow. So please make sure that you enter the keywords in the comment section below, and do stay tuned, friends, for that video. Thank you and have a wonderful and blessed morning.
Program. I mean, that was back when I was advising banking clients. I'm not sure I would have put my foot on the accelerator as much as you all did, given that you were trying to figure out the rules of the road when the Treasury Secretary was giving you updates on facts. I mean, if people really understand the risk that you took ahead of the curve, everybody in Congress should be thankful that you did it, because I think it saved the economy. As a matter of fact, we had several bipartisan bills. We were reacting to something none of us had ever seen. We hadn't seen a pandemic in 100 years. And those bipartisan bills, I think, made the difference between what I think could have been a fiscal disaster and helped us weather the storm. But now I want to talk about what's happened over the last year and a half. We went from a series of bipartisan bills that we spent more than any one of us would have wanted to, into a series of partisan bills that I think are, at least in part, one of the reasons why we have the problems that we do today. $2.5 trillion on a purely partisan basis, flooding the zone with more liquidity than we probably needed. Under President Biden, we're authorizing 80,000 more IRS agents. We're going to retire student loan debt, which is going to be more stimulus into the system, $201 billion in additional regulatory costs, 131 million hours of net new paperwork. The president has signed 77 executive orders, the highest since President Ford, 40 times more than President Trump in the same time period, and 3 times more than President Obama. Last week, I had the occasion to go to Jacksonville, Florida. I always make time to drive 15 minutes away from it to visit the trailer park that I grew up at. At that time, it was about a plot of land of about 10 acres with 6 or 7 trailers on it. Now it's got 100. And all but 6 are permanent residences. One of the reasons I do that, and I'll be going to the trailer park I grew up in Nashville next month, one of the reasons I go through there is just to have a chance conversation with somebody who's there like me, a 19-year-old kid. I moved from Waikiki Boulevard, which it was called Hawaiian Village, where my parents lived, to Sugarcane Lane in the same trailer park, putting myself through community college. I like that chance opportunity to go to people and say, you can get out at where you are today, it's not where you can be. But I'm not really going, I didn't go to that trailer park on Friday, and I won't go to the one next month and have the same sort of optimism. In the hearing, or not the hearing, but in Chair Powell's speech from Jackson Hole, he has clearly indicated to me that we are into tough sledding next year. The rates are going to get up to 4 to 4.25%. And I don't see how it is possible. And in his words, he's talking about we're going to have a period of below trend growth. To a layperson, what I'd tell that person in the trailer park is we're headed for a recession. And it's probably going to happen sometime second half of next year. Now, I know also Chair Powell said perception is reality, so let's not think that we're going into a recession because that could actually hasten it. I get that. But this is go time. This is when people need to start planning. And I think it's almost unavoidable that those people that grew up or growing up in the same circumstances that I have are going to suffer from the policies coming from this body, not what you all are doing. And we have to recognize that, and we have to prepare people for that. I do have one question, and then I may have a few other comments. I actually believe that stakeholder feedback and engagement has been foundational to what you banks have done since you were founded. You invest in the community. I just spoke to the president of the North Carolina Bank for Bank of America. You've got a pilot in 5 cities now trying to go into some of the most distressed neighborhoods and encourage business and growth. You take stakeholders' input into account, but I've just got one simple question. If you can raise your hands if you agree with this. At the end of the day, is it still shareholder primacy that ultimately drives your decision process? At the end of the day,
it does expand U.S. and IRS enforcement on Americans who are struggling to afford basic necessities. Days after the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office published an analysis that the Inflation Reduction Act would actually not reduce inflation, particularly in the short term, President Biden announces that he will do student debt cancellation that would add another $1 trillion to the deficit. Today and tomorrow, the Federal Reserve, which is our United States monetary watchdog, is meeting to set new interest rates in a bid to tame inflation. The body has had to raise interest rates aggressively by 3/4 of a point. In June, Chairman Powell, who's the chairman of the Fed, admitted that the rate increase is unusually large and would not be common. The Fed will likely raise interest rates again by the same amount tomorrow for the 3rd consecutive time in a row. These are the most aggressive rate increases since the 1980s, when my mortgage was way into the teens, that Chairman Powell has plainly stated will bring, quote, pain to households and businesses. We can't forget that the Democrats alone passed a bill last year that they called the American Rescue Plan, which rescued nothing and instead endangered our fragile economy coming out of COVID by hypercharging inflation. Democrats alone drafted and pushed forward their most recent bill, bypassing the normal committee process. And Democrats alone passed it, rejecting every Republican amendment along the way. In short, these policies continue to destabilize every single corner of our economy. Well, how do we know this? We see some of the statistics I talk about. Well, I know it because West Virginians have lived it, and I hear from them frequently about their legitimate concerns. A retiree from Clarksburg, West Virginia, wrote to me recently saying that she and her husband are struggling every month, despite having done their due diligence to save well for their retirement. She says they're trying not to dip into their 401ks or their TSP retirement accounts, but that it is getting harder and harder to not do that. As inflation drags on, the lifespan of retirement savings will continue shrinking for our seniors in West Virginia, and those seniors account for 41% of our population. Another West Virginian wrote to me about the tough choices her family is making, and I quote, "The economy has crumbled in the blink of an eye. My husband and I have full-time jobs and 2 children. I'm tearful because I sit here looking at these upcoming bills and I'm having to decide to pay a bill or to buy groceries," end quote. A resident from Weston, West Virginia, told me that his insurance premiums recently increased. And when he asked the company why that happened, they told him point blank it was due to inflation. In the same letter, the constituent wrote to me, quote, "This crazy spending has got to stop." But it's not just West Virginians who are experiencing this inflationary problems. The National Defense Industrial Association authored in part by former Deputy